Nintendo can technically do a Nintendo Direct anytime the darn well please. And, over the years, there have been plenty of random, like especially earlier on, just kind of popping up at any old random time. But over the last, several years, they've really fallen into a good groove. They've got 3 times a year when they generally do their big Nintendo Directs, and they haven't really deviated from that in quite a long time. You've got February, June, and September. And among those, you have varying consistency. They don't always do 3 within a year. The way I see it, I've not dug through the entire history in a bit, but the way I see it, June is usually the first to go. Like if they only want to do 2 directs in a year, June, that's the one they are most likely to skip, which makes sense because, February, that gives them enough time to announce games for that year. They can come later in the year. And then September is a great opportunity for announcing games for the following year. June is just kind of like, if they've got enough to announce, then they'll do one in June. February, I think, is next on the chopping block. Generally, I want to say we've skipped a few Februaries here and there, and then September is the most consistent one. Practically every year, they do a September Direct. At the time of this recording, it is late January, and so we're just kind of holding our breath and waiting for an announcement of a February Direct. We're very much anticipating one, looking forward to one, certainly. However, I am starting to get just a little bit worried. Worried that we might not get one in February. I'm not super worried. I'm not trying to tell you we're definitely not. It's just a bit. I'm just getting a little bit anxious here because historically, anytime we have been approaching one of those months where we would anticipate a Nintendo Direct, generally if Nintendo starts giving us new trailers for games or especially reveals of games or just kind of anything that could have waited for a Direct, if they start just randomly dropping these things, pretty consistently, it generally does mean we're not getting a Direct. I want to say each time we've been uh-oh, they gave us these new trailers instead of waiting for a Direct. Does that mean we're not getting a Direct? It has meant that we were not getting a Direct. Again, I don't have the entire history open before me right now. I'm not a scholar. I don't study these things. But it really does seem to be the case pretty much all the time. And so right now, we are anticipating a Direct in February, and yet Nintendo's been kind of doing that. They've been dropping some stuff on us that they technically could have waited for. Just within the last week or so, we've gotten a good number of surprise announcements. Even just today, they gave us details about the big update coming to Splatoon 3, and it's actually going to be a lot more substantial than we thought. I'm about to record a whole video on that, some actual changes to the gameplay itself. Last week, they gave us a surprise update for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, which, updated it for Switch 2, but then also, added in some content and fixed the base game and added Dixie and all this stuff. And I am doing a video, by the way. I apologize. I have one coming, and I'm a little bit late, but there is one that should be coming in the next, hopefully, day or two, but we'll see. So yeah, but then there's been more substantial stuff. They just announced a whole Tomodachi Life Direct coming in a couple of days, and then a couple of weeks ago they gave us a new trailer, or basically a bigger reveal trailer, an overview trailer for Mario Tennis Fever. It's really hard for me to remember that name. I don't know. It's Mario Tennis Ultra Aces. I don't know. So yeah, it is a little bit weird, and it's a little bit worrisome. That is a pretty darn good number of trailers and updates and pieces of news that they maybe could have saved for a full Direct. And any given year, a missed Direct is, just disappointing, just as a fan. We want all the Nintendo Directs we could possibly get. We love our yummy game announcements. So anytime we don't get one and we gotta wait for the next slot, it's a bit of a bummer. But I more than anything right now, it's not just about me wanting a Direct. It's more this feeling that Nintendo really needs one. They really, really need one right now. They didn't really convince everybody, like, software-wise last year. You know, I mean, it's this endless discussion. Like, they're trying to convince everybody to get a Switch 2. And they did, like, pretty good. There were a lot of notable releases. But there are just a lot of people who are just kind of waiting for more. You know, there are people who are waiting for, like, the really big games that make it just, like, easy and obvious to get a Switch 2. And again, as I've talked about in plenty of other videos, I do think Pokemon Gen 10 is going to be revealed probably in February, Pokemon Day, and that will be a big deal. But, like, Nintendo themselves, like, they really do need to announce some stuff. And we do have a number of games that have been announced for 2026 already. There just aren't any really big ones. You know, maybe Splatoon Raiders will end up being a bigger deal than I think. Maybe, but even then, like, we need to know more about the game. Just like at all, it would be really nice. But, like, I don't know. It feels like right now we need big Nintendo announcements more than ever. I'm talking about it in an upcoming video. I think they're probably in for a fairly rough 2026. Not like a disastrous one. You know, I'll never believe that the Switch 2 was going to be like a failure or whatever. I just think it might be a bit of an uphill battle. I think this year might be a little bit hard for them. So, like, we really are just waiting for the big announcements. So, like, they need one in February, especially if missing February means we won't get one until June. It's just like, what are you doing? You know, like, what are you doing? We need the games. You got to bring the games. A lot of us are just kind of holding our breath, just waiting for that February Direct and seeing what they announce. So, like, the idea that they might not, because now they're giving us these trailers and things, yeah, it's a little bit worrisome. Now, on the positive side, I really do think that it could be that all of these announcements have been kind of strategic. You know, it's not like they have given us like a random game reveal. That's when you definitely know there's not going to be a direct. If they give you a trailer for like a brand new game that's not been announced, that usually does mean something. Speaking of Splatoon Raiders, they revealed that randomly in June. And guess what? We didn't have a direct in June. We didn't really need one because in April we had basically had a gigantic Nintendo Direct. But I don't know, it's just kind of an example. And we haven't really had that here. We've had mostly just like updates for previously announced games. And again, like Tomodachi Life is getting its own Direct. The way I see it, the reason that there is still hope is that, okay, Tomodachi Life is a Switch 1 game. And it's getting its own Direct, but that could just be because they want to talk about it a lot. I understand why they'd want to give it a Direct. And so they just don't want to spend a lot of time in a regular Direct. And even in the past, we saw this thing where, like, when the Switch first launched, Nintendo did do a lot of Directs and presentations kind of just focusing on the Switch. They didn't want to talk about the 3DS. Even the June 2017, that legendary presentation, it was all about Switch. And they actually, I mean, they announced Samus Returns, like, randomly during, like, E3 stuff, like, or during, like, a Treehouse live stream. It's because the 3DS was just not even on the table. And I know it's a little bit different with Switch and Switch 2 because it still is this kind of, like, integrated ecosystem. But it is at least possible that right now they're going to start like having this distinction. And that's why, even though just now we got an update for DKCR HD, well, that's a Switch 1 game. Splatoon 3, it's a Switch 1 game. Tomodachi Life is getting a dedicated Direct, but that's a Switch 1 game. So it could just be they're getting that stuff out of the way so that they can give us a Direct in February that is focused entirely on Switch 2. That is very possible. But Arlo, what about Mario Tennis? Why did they just give us a big, I mean, just like a few weeks ago, right? Why did they give us a big trailer for Mario Tennis Fever? Why did they not just wait for the Direct? Well, I would say that it's because that game is going to launch on February 12th, which is a Thursday, about mid-month. And, like, historically, that's pretty much exactly when we would expect to get a Direct. Like, if I had to guess, that like that Wednesday or Thursday, the 11th or the 12th. Like if I had to guess when they would do a February Direct, I would say around there. And so obviously they need to market the game before that time. They can't wait until then to market the game. They always do different like stages of marketing. So they did that trailer, and then definitely go leading up to launch, they'll do a launch trailer, overview trailer. I'm sure, we may even get a direct on that same day. They'll definitely mention it, but that would be why they gave us this trailer a couple of weeks ago. So if we look at all of that, I think that may be enough to explain all of this. And we could easily still get a February Direct. And there's even a rumor going around. Nate the Hate loves dropping rumors, juicy little rumors about Nintendo Directs. And he claims that he has heard we're going to get a Direct next week, in the first week of February. However, he did also say that he's not been able to confirm this with his best sources. I guess he has varying degrees of like trustability with his sources. I really don't know. I still don't even know why or how he has sources. I don't know. But it is a rumor. Somebody out there has heard that there's going to be one next week. Yeah, even earlier than I would generally expect. So it is still totally possible. It absolutely is. I think the reason I'm still just slightly nervous is it's like, even if I can look at all of these recent announcements and things and like figure out why they may be okay, there is just still no doubt that there have been a lot of them. And that just still makes me nervous. You know what I mean? It just, no matter what, I'm conditioned. This is a conditioning thing. In the past, generally, when they give us these announcements leading up to a Direct, we don't get the Direct. So even if I can probably explain some of these, it's still just like this little seed, this little tiny seed of worry. It's the conditioning combined with just the very high stakes. Very high stakes. Nintendo just really, really needing a Nintendo Direct right now to announce some games. The September Direct announced a bunch of games, but it still just did not announce games that were like big ones, the big ones that we're waiting for. It was just kind of like a bunch of like more like medium games, which is fine. Love those kinds of games. They just don't generally move systems in the same numbers. And then even then, like there are a lot of these games that we do need more info on. We need to know anything about Splatoon Raiders. We need info on Fire Emblem. Like, we do need info. Yes, they could just give us this info in random trailers and announcements and things like that. We don't necessarily need a Direct, but you just add it all together. All these games that need updates, some of which we don't even know what they are yet, Nintendo really needing to bring the games. It would just be a really particularly bad time for them to skip a Direct. And I know they can't just like magically materialize games out of thin air. If they don't do a Direct at any given time, it's because they didn't have enough to announce. It's as simple as that. You can't like force them to have things to announce. But that's why we just kind of have to hope. And we have to hope that if they do a February Direct, they bring one or two of those games, because they really need them right now. It's the beginning of the generation. Last time, we just saw like presentation after presentation, announcing game after game after game. They'd been building up. They had so much to give us. So now it's just like, okay, you've been building up. If anything, the Switch 2 launch was delayed, and we've heard about how a lot of its like launch window titles had just been sitting on the shelf waiting to be pulled out. So like, obviously you're working on something here. Like, obviously you should, in theory, have a lot to deliver. So just like, yeah, like, where is it? But yeah, we just gotta wait and see. Again, I'm not super duper worried. I think there really is a good chance that we'll still get one in February. Will it be next week or the following week? I don't really know. But, I don't know. We'll see.